going to tell you some stories about my father, not because he was an extraordinary man. He wasn't. He was like all of us. He was a slight overachiever, neurotically driven. Tried to do the best he can, kind of made a decent mark for himself. So, there's no need to really tell that story. We pretty much all know that one. But there's another story I want to tell because what's happening is my father is disappearing. He's been dead 10 years now. And something happened inside me where I knew he was disappearing too fast. That not only time was erasing him, but I was too. And that unless I brought him back in front of me in all of his colors, all of the dark colors and all of the warm, lovely colors, that something inside me would start to shrivel, that I'd begin to die. And that if I did it right, it would be beautiful. That I would see my father. And perhaps, I don't know how this works, but I know that it does, that some of you will see your fathers. And if you're fathers yourself, you'll see yourself. And of course, always in the background, you'll see the shadows of the sun, because you can't paint a picture of your father without painting yourself right into the shadows around him. I should probably start with what my father looked like. Everybody would like to know that. He was about 6 feet. He was slim all his life. One of those ramrod type slim guys. Got married at 98 pounds. He used to boast, and my mother said it was true. Looks like a bag of bones, I guess, but not emaciated. Dark-haired, sharp-eyed, green, brown eyes. Very dark hair that stayed dark until the day he died. 72, maybe 73. I sometimes even now can't remember, or don't want to. And don't forget that he's dressed in a uniform because he was a military man. He was both a colonel in the Army and he was a captain in the Navy. You couldn't keep him out of the uniform. And you can see it, let's say that it's a dark uniform. It's a Navy uniform with the braids. So you have a dark, erect, 6 foot, slim, with a nose, a kind of Roman, hawk-like nose. Not hard, but prominent. And the eyes and the dark hair, and he looked like a soldier. And even if you were to take him and turn him horizontally, which is how I first saw him after having a violent argument with him 3 years before. Well, he would look exactly the same. He looked exactly like he did the day that he slapped me, and I told him he'd never do that to me again. I was 42. He was in his early 70s. We never spoke after that. So when I saw him lying there in the casket at the wake, I knew he was dead. I had been told that. I knew he was, but he looked exactly as he always did. He had died so suddenly, quickly, 30 seconds of a massive stroke, cerebral stroke, that he didn't look hurt. He just looked cold and stunned. And I remember the first thing that I thought as I looked down at him, the very first thing, when I realized he was dead, completely dead, is, now you can't tell me what to do. But it was softer than that. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was, you can't tell me what to do. I wonder. But maybe there was the other two, the anger. My father and I had the same kind of relationship he had with all his children. I was the youngest. I was not the youngest, but I often felt like the youngest. But I was the second oldest, who always feels youngest. I had an older brother, Arthur, and then 5 other brothers and sisters beneath me. My father was always in your business. He wanted to know if you got an A, why you didn't get an A plus. If you didn't get an A plus, or if you did get an A plus, when you were going to get your next one, or why didn't you get one before, or who else got A pluses, and how many did they have this year? So no matter how well you did, you were never really rewarded with love and affection. You were loved with a harder whip to keep going, to never be satisfied, to be afraid of failure, to not slip between the cracks. He wanted to make sure that you succeeded, and he wanted to make sure that you weren't doing wrong behavior. He was very moral, in a kind of crazy, wacky old woman way sometimes. I don't know what got into his head, because he was a pretty social guy. You know, in fact, I would have liked to have known in my 50s about my age. Extremely social man. But God, he was in your case. He wanted to make sure that things were going right and you weren't slipping from the path. And I remember when I was 11 or 12, I had just learned to masturbate. It was a new sacrament. My life had opened up. It had become new to me. I couldn't believe it. Of course, I was haunted by guilt, being Irish Catholic and an altar boy, and of course was brought up strictly in the church, but my body went out. It always does in such cases. It always has. I remember one night, it was late, and it came to me again that it was time, so I went into the bathroom as all boys do. God knows, we spend most of our time there in our teen years, and closed the door, and just getting down to business, and like I was praying, and there was this tremendous knock on the door, and it was my father. I hadn't seen the lights coming up. I remembered, yes, I had seen it was my father. He had come back from the Army Reserve meeting. He wanted to know who was in there, and I said, it's Justin. He goes, what are you doing in there? What are you doing in there? I said, I'm going to the bathroom. He said, open the door, open the door. So I didn't know what to do. I'm looking down, and I'm hoping the erection goes down real quick, because I got to make it to the door. He's going to tear it down. And I guess it does or anything, but something propels me to the door, and I open it, and I'm standing there looking up at him, and he's looking down at me, and he's angry, but he's stunned. I guess he hadn't expected me to be naked. And there was something about the way I must have approached him. I just went to the door. I was always a forthright child. I wanted to please him. He liked forthright children. Never told a lie. And I went up, and I'm just looking up at him, and I didn't know what to say. Maybe I had some erection left. I don't know. I was so scared. But he didn't say anything. He just backed off. Kind of mumbled something and said, get dressed and go to bed. Or no, he didn't say that. He said, why don't you have any clothes on? I said it was hot. It was summer. But I guess that got us out of the contest, because he was very uncomfortable with my sexuality, as indeed any father would be, but most fathers would have the sense to stay out of the bathroom. Anyway, he didn't. He kind of slumped off with, well, get to bed. It was the first of many contests with my father. Some I won. Maybe I won just about all of them. Some I didn't. Or maybe I did, I don't know. I was coming home one night. I was about 17 or 16. I got drunk. I was a busboy at an Italian restaurant. So we sat around drinking slow gin fizzes all night till about 2 in the morning, and I was absolutely cracked. And I walked home from the Italian restaurant to where I lived, and I was a busboy there, and I was thinking, boy, I hope my parents aren't out to catch me like this, out of my gourd. And then I'm thinking, I had just seen a Danny Thomas show or somebody, Life with Father, where Bud comes back kind of drunk, and his father takes him in to have coffee, and he kind of laughs with him and puts him to bed. So I'm coming home, well, that'll probably happen. And I walk in the door, and it's completely dark. Nobody's up, and then this fist comes out of the side. It was so fast and so cowardly and angry, and it hit me and knocked me against the radiator. It was my father. He must have been sitting there for hours. Like maybe I made fun of him the day before. I was getting to that point. Not quite, though. I wasn't like a college wise guy yet, but there was a contest. I was doing something wrong. I was getting drunk. I was staying out. I wasn't behaving. Somebody had yelled at him at work, fuck, I'm in this. And when I walked in the door, he was going to show me what to do. He was not going to let me get away with it. He was going to give him something that he'd remember, which I always did. It almost broke my back. I was laid out for 3 or 4 days. Couldn't move.